Welcome to the Edelried Knowledge Base. These long textile bonds we call ropes have come a very long way. Probably since humans seriously started climbing their surrounding mountains, ropes have been one of the most efficient ways to secure climbers from their exposure. The first ropes were handmade ropes made from natural fibers like cotton or hemp. Then in the 1940s and 50s, the revolutionary introduction of the synthetic fiber nylon, together with the Kernmantel construction introduced by Edelried in 1953, made it possible to get lighter and safer ropes. Today, climbing ropes have advanced to a technical level where it is almost impossible in a real-life situation that a rope will fail due to an overload. However, every year accidents of severed ropes are recorded and climbers get hurt or even die. So the question is, why does this happen? One of the, if not the first, to document and analyze accidents caused by severed ropes was safety research pioneer Piet Schubert in the 1960s. Later, the German Alpine Club DAV continued his work. In the below statistics, we put together all known accidents caused by the severed ropes in a climbing scenario, merging the DAV statistics with documented accidents by the American Alpine Journal, as well as the accidents known to Edelried. Including 2018, this means an average of approximately 2 accidents per year. However, the bigger question that arises from this is obviously what caused these accidents. Unfortunately, not all accidents are documented well and causes are not always known, but given the information that is there, we see that the main 3 causes are by far sharp edges, followed by rockfall and chemical contamination. So if the biggest danger for today's ropes are sharp edges, why didn't manufacturers try to improve on their ropes' cut resistance? The answer is quite simple and frustrating at the same time, because there hasn't been a reliable way to measure cut resistance. And if there isn't a method to measure how well a rope persists a load over a sharp edge, how are you able to tell whether you achieved exactly this? This is not to say that there hasn't been attempts to do so in the past. One of the most famous tests regarding this topic was the UIAA sharp edge test introduced in 2002. This test was based on the standard fall test of the European Standard for Dynamic Ropes EN 892. It took the testing setup of the guided freefall tower and replaced the round edge that the rope hits with a sharp edge. So to say, an edge with a defined small radius. The test requirement was simple. If the rope held 1 fall over this edge, it would be rated UIAA sharp edge resistant. However, this test was already suspended again by the UIAA 2 years later in 2004 because the results were not consistent over different testing laboratories. So one testing lab would find results that another lab did not find. Over the years, there have been several more attempts that you will find more details about in a linked article. But all of them had the same problem. They lack reproducibility. And of course, if you want a standardized test, the results must be the same everywhere. And this is exactly the challenge of cut resistance tests. First of all, you have to make the 100% same cutting movement every time. And second, an edge like this will get dull over time, meaning that you will not know at one point if you have a very cut-resistant rope or if your edge just doesn't cut good enough anymore. 5 years ago, we made our own attempt to tackle this problem. 5 years already says that it wasn't a simple process, and you can find a detailed description of the journey again in the article below. But we finally came up with a method that gets you results with a standard deviation of below 5%. So this is the machine. The principle here always is control as much parameters as possible and make the cutting action as reproducible as possible. So you see, it is basically a static setup. To remind you, dynamic setups are not really nice to control. The test specimen is put in the machine with a given angle of 120 degrees and is fixed on both sides with these rope clamps. Now, the heart of this machine is the cutting wheel here that has a defined structured surface and is made out of a specialized hardened steel that does barely get dull. While it is turning to cut the specimen, it is cleaned on the other side. Now, on the machine, you can adjust for a certain load, meaning that the machine will tension the rope accordingly. Then the wheel will spin on a given speed, and what the machine measures now is the length on the wheel until the rope fails in centimeters. The longer the rope travels on the wheel, obviously the more cut resistant it is. Now let's see the whole thing in action. Like I said, with this test we achieved for the first time to have a cut-resistant test for textiles that can be called reproducible and allows to compare different ropes with each other. The importance to judge the cut resistance of our ropes is quite imposing looking at the causes of accidents. The current data a manufacturer has to publish about their ropes, like for example the weight, might help sometimes to choose a rope for a specific endeavor, but it doesn't tell you anything about the safety of your rope really. In this little series, we will explore the hows and whys of cut resistance of ropes and try to understand what influences cut resistance of ropes and what conclusions should we draw from this. Enjoy!